Pope Osborne Magic Tree House 12, Polar Bears Past Bedtime. Chapter 6, Flying Bears. The cubs whimpered louder. They want to go to her, but they're afraid of the ice, whispered Jack. Annie petted the cubs. Don't be afraid, she told them. You'll get back to your mother, the big polar bear growled. She paced back and forth, sniffing the air. Annie kept patting the two cubs and whispering to them. Jack looked in the book for anything that might help. Finally, he found something. Even though a female polar bear can weigh as much as 750 pounds, she can walk on ice too thin to hold a person by balancing her weight and sliding her paws over the ice. Oh man, that's incredible, whispered Jack. He watched. The mother polar bear walked down the snowbank. On large, silent feet, she crept about at the edge of the frozen sea. She tried to step onto the ice, but each time she did, it cracked, and she had to retreat. At last, she found a firm spot. Then the polar bear stretched out her four legs and lay on the ice. Slowly, she moved forward, pushing herself with her claws. Is she coming for her babies? Said Jack. Or is she coming to get us? I don't know, said Annie. Hey, let's put on the masks. What for? Said Jack. Maybe they'll protect us, said Annie. Maybe she'll think we're polar bears, too. Oh, brother, said Jack. But Annie gave him a bear mask. He took off his glasses and slipped it on. Jack peered through the mask holes. It was hard to see the huge white bear sliding over the frozen sea. He squinted. That helped. The polar bear looked at her cubs and let out a deep moan. The two little bears carefully went to their mother. She licked the cubs and touched her nose against each of theirs. Then they crawled onto her back. They're safe now, said Jack. Even if the mother breaks through the ice, she can swim with them to the shore. Yeah, I just wish she wouldn't leave us behind, said Annie. The mother bear slowly turned her body around. Then she pushed off with her hind legs. With her cubs on her back, she began sliding away. Let's try moving like her, Annie said. But we could break through and freeze to death, said Jack. If we just stay here, we'll freeze too, said Annie. Remember, the seal hunter said his people had learned from the polar bears. Jack took a deep breath. Okay, he said. Let's try it. He lay on his stomach. He spread out his arms and legs. Then he copied the bear. He pressed his mittens against the ice and pushed off, sliding his feet. Amazingly, there was no cracking sound. Grr, he growled. And he pushed off again. Jack heard Annie sliding behind him. He kept going. He pushed and slid. He pushed again and slid again. He made the movements over and over. Until something happened, he didn't feel like a boy anymore. He felt like a polar bear. Then Jack felt something even stranger. He felt like a flying polar bear. Jack swirled along as if his arms and legs were giant wings, and the moonlit sea ice were a glassy sky. He remembered what the seal hunter had said. Polar bears can fly. Chapter 7, Spirit Lights. Jack, you can get up now, said Annie. Jack opened his eyes. Annie was standing over him. She still had her mask on. We're on safe ground, she said. Jack felt as if he'd been dreaming. He looked around. They had reached the tundra at the edge of the frozen sea. The cubs were romping in the distance. But their mother was sitting nearby, gazing at Jack and Annie. She waited to make sure we were safe, said Annie. Jack stared at the polar bear in awe. The words of the seal hunter came back to him. Always thank the animal spirits. We should thank the polar bear spirit now, he said. Of course, said Annie. Jack scrambled to his feet. Still wearing his bear mask, he stood before the polar bear and pressed his hands together. We thank you, he said, bowing. Yes, we thank you forever, said Annie, also bowing. We thank you beyond the moon and the stars, said Jack. And beyond the deepest sea, Annie added. Then she threw out her arms and twirled around. Jack did the same. They both danced around in the snow, honoring the bear. Finally, they stopped and bowed one last time. When they looked up, the polar bear rose up on her hind legs. She was twice as tall as Jack. She lowered her huge head as if she were bowing back to them. At that moment, the sky exploded. The night became a giant swirl of red, green, and purple lights. It looked like a genie coming out of a magic lamp. The sight took Jack's breath away. He stared in wonder as the dazzling lights lit the tundra. "Is it the polar bear spirit?" Annie asked in a hushed voice. As far as Jack could see, the sky and snow shimmered. Even the bear's fur shimmered in the strange light. "No, it's not a spirit," said Jack. "There's got to be a scientific reason. I'll find out." Shaking, he reached into his backpack and pulled out the Arctic book. He took off his bear mask and put on his glasses. By the greenish glow, Jack found a picture of the skylights. The picture didn't come close to the real thing. He read aloud. "One of the most amazing sights in the Arctic is the northern lights. The swirl of light is caused by electrically charged particles from the sun striking atoms and molecules in the Earth's atmosphere." "See, there is a scientific reason," said Jack. "It's not the spirits." Then suddenly all the dancing lights were gone, as if someone had blown out a candle. The magic had ended. Chapter 8. Riddle Solved. Now only the moon shone on the snow. Jack looked around for the polar bear. She was gone. "Where'd she go?" asked Annie. "I don't know," said Jack. He looked over the tundra. There was no sign of the giant bear or her cubs. "Maybe she's not interested in scientific reasons," Jack said. Annie sighed. She took off her bear mask and handed it to Jack. He put both their masks in his pack. "Now what?" asked Annie. They looked around. The vast fields of snow ended in darkness. Jack had no idea where they were. He shrugged. "I guess we just have to walk and hope for the best." "Wait, listen," said Annie. From the distance came howling sounds. They grew louder and louder. "Yay! We don't have to wait long," said Annie. "The huskies are coming." Howling filled the night as the dog sled came into view. The seal hunter was running beside it. "We're here, over here," called Jack. He ran toward the sled. Annie followed. "I was afraid you were lost," said the seal hunter. "We were," said Annie. "And we got stuck on thin ice too. But a polar bear helped us." "Yeah," said Jack. "And we wore your masks and they made us feel like bears." "Yeah, the masks made us brave," said Annie. She caught her breath. "Oh man, wait," said Jack. Annie's words sounded familiar. He took out his notebook and read Morgan's riddle aloud. "I cover what's real and hide what's true. But sometimes I bring out the courage in you." "What am I?" "A mask," Jack and Annie said together. The seal hunter smiled. "You knew," said Annie. "It was for you to discover," said the seal hunter. "Not me." Jack pulled the bear masks out of his backpack. "Here," he said. "Thanks a lot." The hunter took the masks and put them inside his parka. "We can go home now," said Jack. "Do you mind taking us back to the treehouse?" said Annie. The seal hunter shook his head. "Climb on," he said. Jack and Annie climbed onto the dog sled. "Mush," said the seal hunter. "Mush," said Annie. "Mush," said Jack. Snow began to fall as they took off across the dark ice. Chapter 9. By the time the dog sled arrived at the treehouse, the snowstorm had become a blizzard. "Can you wait just a minute?" Jack asked the seal hunter. "So we can check something?" The hunter nodded. His dogs whined as Jack and Annie climbed through the treehouse window. Jack grabbed the scroll that held the riddle. He unrolled it. The riddle was gone. In its place was one shimmering word, mask. "We did it," said Annie. "The treehouse will take us home now." "Great," said Jack. "Let's say goodbye to the seal hunter and give him back his clothes." They quickly pulled off their sealskin clothing and their boots. "Thanks for letting us borrow these," Jack called through the window. The seal hunter walked to the treehouse and took the clothes from Jack and Annie. They stood shivering in their pajamas and bare feet. Thanks for everything," said Annie, her teeth chattering. The seal hunter gave them a wave. Then he walked through the swirling snow to his sled. "Mush!" he shouted. The dogs took off through the stormy night. "Let's get out of here," said Jack. He hugged himself. "Before we freeze to death." Annie grabbed the Pennsylvania book that always took them home. She pointed to a picture of the Frog Creek woods. "I wish we could go there," she said. They waited for the treehouse to start spinning. Nothing happened. Jack shivered. "I wish we could go there," Annie said again. Again, nothing happened. What's going on?" said Jack. He looked around the treehouse. The 4 scrolls with the solved riddle answers were in the corner. Then he saw a 5th scroll. "Where did that come from?" he said. Jack grabbed it and unrolled it. On it were the words, "Look at the letters, the first, not the rest. Discover the place that you love the best." "Oh no," said Annie. "Another riddle." Okay. Let's stay calm," Jack said, shivering. "Look at the letters, the first, not the rest. Okay, the first letters in this riddle are L-A-T, L-T. "That doesn't make any sense," Annie broke in. Icy winds battered the treehouse. Snow blew inside. "We have to hurry," said Annie. Jack was freezing. He looked around wildly. "Letters. What letters?" he said. His gaze rested on the scrolls in the corner. Maybe we should look at the letters of the answers," he said. "Right," said Annie. They began unrolling the scrolls. The scroll from their adventure under the ocean said, "Oyster." The scroll from their trip to the Wild West said, "Echo." The scroll from their journey to Africa said, "Honey." Their scroll from the Arctic said, "Mask." "Oyster, echo, honey, mask," said Jack. "Their first letters are O-E-H-M. "That doesn't make any sense either," said Annie. "Yeah, but maybe we have to unscramble those letters," said Jack. O-E-H-M. They could spell hemo, or miho, said Annie. "Or home," said Jack. "Home," cried Annie. "That's the place we love the best." Jack unrolled the 5th scroll again. The riddle was gone. In its place was one shimmering word. "Home, yay!" cried Annie. She grabbed the Pennsylvania book. "I wish we could go home, 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 home." The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 10. Master Librarians. Warm air washed over Jack. It felt wonderful. "You have succeeded in your quest," said a soft, soothing voice. "Are you glad to be home?" Jack opened his eyes. Morgan Le Fay stood in the moonlight. "Yes," he said. "We solved all our riddles," said Annie. "Indeed," said Morgan. "You have proved that you can find answers to very hard questions." She reached into the folds of her robe and took out 2 thin pieces of wood. "A magic library card for each of you," she said. She gave one to Annie and one to Jack. "Oh man," said Jack, feeling the card. The wooden card was as thin and smooth as an ordinary library card. On its surface shimmered the letters M and L. "These are your Master Librarian cards," said Morgan. "You are the newest members of the Ancient Society of Master Librarians." "What do we do with them?" asked Jack. "Take them on your future journeys," said Morgan. "Only a very wise person or another Master Librarian will be able to see the letters. These will be the people who can help you." "Wow," said Annie. "Can we go on a mission right now?" "Now you must go home and rest," said Morgan. "I will come back for you soon." Jack and Annie put their secret cards in their pockets. Then Jack took out the Arctic book and put it with the other books. "Goodbye," he said. "See you soon," Annie said to Morgan. Morgan gave them a little wave. Jack and Annie climbed down the rope ladder. As soon as they stepped onto the dark ground, they heard a roar. They looked up. They saw a blur of wind and light high in the oak tree. Then all was silent. Morgan and her magic treehouse were gone. Jack reached for his magic library card. When he felt its tingly warmth, he knew that amazing adventures lay ahead. "Let's go," he said. He turned on his flashlight. "The woods don't feel scary like they did before," said Annie as they walked through the trees. "I'm not afraid anymore." "Me neither," said Jack. "Hey, the darkness is like a mask," said Annie. "Yeah," said Jack. "It hides the day, but it brings out your courage." They came out of the woods. Jack saw their house in the distance. It looked warm and cozy. The porch light glowed. The moon shone overhead. "Home," he whispered. "Home," said Annie. She started running. Jack took off after her, running to the place that they both loved the best.